Hey, everybody, it's Maple Syrup Time, and we are here today with a very special guest, Jason Kogan. Jason is a designer from the Toronto area. Do you actually come from Toronto, or are you just in around Toronto?
I mean, I'm currently in Toronto, I suppose, East York,
Okay.
but
Okay, yeah.
I grew up north, like
Okay.
Thornhill, so still
Oh,
true GTA.
when you're like up north, I
Yeah,
thought
that's.
you meant like
I was thinking
Sudbury
like
or
Sudbury. Yeah,
Timmins or
Blues
Temiskaming.
Factory.
No, yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's just North York or Thornhill. Okay, cool. So we brought Jason on today's show to talk about specifically rapid prototyping, but he has a whole bunch of other skills that we want to dig into. So to start us all off, hey, let's welcome Jason to the show. Welcome, Jason. And can you tell us a little bit about your origin story, like from your humble beginnings in Thornhill to now? Like, how did you get from there to here? How did you get into gaming? How did you get into game design? And what is the impetus for you to make games?
So three very good questions. I'll go quick. How I got into gaming was up in Thornhill, the northern Toronto area. In grade four, I was introduced through my French teacher to a French car card game, which you can
Milborn?
hear. Milborn. It's right here on my shoulder. The copy from 1953. It was my very first acquisition when I realized that board gaming was a hobby. I sought out the exact copy that sort of got me into board games. My parents had a couple other games, but that was the one that I really remember me getting into, like board games. In terms of the hobby, it's probably about 20 years ago. I stumbled into Harry Tarantula back in the when it was down by the Eaton Center, and
Right.
just discovered this whole other world and met some people. And so I've been in the hobby for about 20 years now. And then in terms of the game design journey specifically, that started probably, I would say, 2 years ago at Gen Con when I became the North American Saboteur champion and really just wanted to see what else I could do in board games and like realize like maybe there's a path here that I could, I don't know, try to make a failing career out of, which I'm succeeding at making a failing career out of.
I believe there are lots of us who are doing that, but you're the only one who is also the 2024 North American Saboteur Champion.
It's true.
I forgot to introduce you as such. Just as a word of warning, I think if you're gonna like hit the table, there's something on your table that is resonant. So like whatever you're doing, there's something going on with like something that has springs in it or that is waving back and forth because lots of noise. Anyways, cool.
All right.
So now, so you've only been designing for 2 years, 2 or 3 years.
I've been designing for a year and a half.
A year and a half, like 18
I
months
would say,
total.
yeah, even less than that, which makes it impressive the number of games that you've been able to create on your website, which we'll share towards the end. We were looking at it right before the show. I'm seeing like two or three new games since the last time I saw you, which was only a few. Son and I both saw you at Protospiel North. That was only not even 2 months ago.
No, it was like 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was not that long ago at all. And
That's
so
And
so
so
you're constantly creating and making new things, right?
I'm rich with ideas and time.
Right. And in that regard, I guess that is what really gets us to the question of rapid prototyping. So the concept of prototyping is making something that other people can play and getting the idea out of the noggin and onto the table. So what is your process for doing that so quickly?
Well, I would say I it starts with 20 years of gaming experience and knowing all sorts of game mechanics and understanding a variety and plethora of games. It also stems from focusing on simpler games. So the games that you're talking about are more fast card games, things like that. I'm not making complex Euro style games very quickly. The Hafiz, when you and I met a year and a half ago, and I had my first version of Great Uncle Mort is Dead. I'm still iterating on that, and so that's been like a year and a half journey with lots of play tests. But definitely for the card games, you can iterate a lot faster because you get them on the table. More people want to play them. They're quick to iterate, quick to play, quick for feedback. Just in general, the cycles are a lot quicker with casual games. And the benefit is then I'm developing more mass market games that have a larger audience and perhaps larger distribution potential. So really, it's more about game focus. I only have at this point three, 2.5 sort of meatier games and a couple in the pipes that I've thought about, but they're really just like early.
Okay. So you are purposely focusing on games that are easy and quick to get to the table. Or
Um,
maybe, I mean, maybe not purposely, but you found your niche, I guess.
so I would say I purposely focus on games that do what I dislike, do what fix what I dislike about other games. So I dislike games with like a lot of wait time. I
Mm,
dislike games that are hugely luck focused. I
Hmm.
dislike games where where I don't have a lot of player agency. So I try to do things, focus on games that sort of eliminate that. So I have a lot of games that are simultaneous play or very quick actions, and sometimes that ends up being like a 15-minute card game, and sometimes that ends up being a bunch of micro moves that sort of add up to a 45-minute game as I sort of develop it. So the octopus game that
mm,
we talked about before we started here, Within Reach, which is on my website, that has micro actions that each turn takes 5 seconds, 10 seconds, something like that. But the game at a whole is 45 minutes. So it's more about the individual turns being quick than the game itself necessarily being quick. But generally, it's a focus on developing games that are fun and ideally do target a more mass audience or at worst a gateway audience. I don't really go into like a hobby space.
Now,
okay.
you mentioned that you are rich with ideas. And so, how can you walk us through how do you pinpoint an idea that you would like to run with and then get that to the table and get it to a place where you're happy with it, where you're going to bring it to a cafe to play with other people, bring it to a playtesting event? Like, what does that look like from this big cloud of ideas to, hey, Sen, Hafiz, do you want to give this game a try?
I mean, for starters, I try to get everything I can on the table. Like, even if it's just an idea, a mechanic, even just sort of the premise of a game, I try to talk to game designers. I regularly attend the Snakes and Lattes game design nights, and so I try to discuss it there. There isn't really like a too early, uh, you know, it's really about iteration. So I try to get everything in front of audiences as quickly as I can and then get feedback and then don't be married to where things are. Don't be sometimes, and I'm guilty of it and I've written articles about it. Sometimes I'm like I get hung up on like a certain idea, like, oh, I designed this game with this mechanic in mind, and I just refuse to remove it. But you know what? Eventually I heard enough feedback that I was like, well, let me try removing it. And then things just got easier and space was made. And so, sometimes I am a little stubborn, but 90% of the time, it's more about listening to what people are saying and then leaning into that. And really, when it comes to feedback and figuring out like what makes a game great, the two areas that I love to sort of focus on are the fun and the theme. So once I've sort of got the theme of a game, if stuff in the game doesn't make sense with that theme, then I'm like, okay, that needs to go. And then once I can identify the fun part of the game, I'm always asking like, what's the fun part? What's the part that I'm supposed to be enjoying here? Throw away everything that doesn't ladder up to that. So it's more about filtering and skimming. And the beauty of that is that as I'm chopping off those other areas, that might be another game. That might be
Hmm.
two other games. Like the things I'm cutting off might turn into other games. So that's partially why I have so many ideas. Because I'm like, oh, I cut this thing off this one game. Maybe that's another game. I'll table that for later.
Hmm. Do you think that you have more ideas now, like a year and a half later, than you did like day one?
Definitely.
Oh, that's
Yes.
interesting. That's great.
Yes, definitely. I think it's a lot because I keep carving stuff off. So I'll start ideas and then I'll carve it off and I'm like, okay, this isn't really working, but maybe it'll work for another game and I'll shelve it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
It's
You
it's like
mentioned,
it's like a sourdough starter.
it's
hmm,
like a sourdough starter. That's great. Yes, it is.
that was a great analogy. Um, Now I'm hungry. You mentioned that you have two things you're searching for, and you mentioned finding the fun. How do you
Mm.
go about doing that?
A lot of play testing. like as often as I possibly can. Um, my wife hates it. Don't You shouldn't talk to her about it, because yeah, she really struggles with these games that are like still forming, and it's like, well,
Mm.
you don't really have a theme on it yet, or that wasn't really fun. I don't want to play it again. But it's like, no, the next time we play it, like it'll be better because you've been honest. And so as I mentioned, snakes and lattes every 2 weeks. Like I'm at every game design night. Casually hanging out with friends, I force them to play my games, or I ask them politely, "Hey, do you mind if I take 10 minutes and show you a thing? We don't have to play the whole game, but I'm looking for feedback." So really, it's just a lot of playtesting.
So is
Yeah.
it mainly you're getting the feedback from external people, or is there something when you're creating a game that speaks to you and you're like, oh, I really like this? Or is there some kind of balance? Like, how do you know to keep moving with it? Because sometimes playtesters will give you feedback on games the way they would want it designed, but which might be different from what you're imagining.
No, most of the time at the game design nights, the playtesting feedback is from other designers, and they will give you feedback from their perspective. It's your job to steer the ship. You're in an ocean of feedback. You need to steer the ship towards the destination that you're going towards. So really, it's actually more about understanding which feedback or which aspects of the feedback actually ladder up to your destination, and try to make sure that you don't let them create or influence a different game that's not that. So uh, feedback from game designers is important, but feedback from regular players, from just like play testers, is equally important. And something else I do, full disclosure, I know this will be a little contentious. I use AI just like 90% of other humans on the planet right now that use computers and the internet. AI is fantastic at identifying bad ideas, like telling me things that, like, it's very rare that AI will give me an idea that I end up going with. It's more that I use it to spark ideas for me. So I'll brainstorm with AI how to bring a certain mechanic to life, or what other things might work with this theme. And then it'll often tell me things that just, okay, I'm striking those off the list, and that'll spark ideas. Because, it's always better to have a brainstorming session with anyone else, having a design partner of some kind, and in absence of having an ongoing relationship where I'm co-designing with another designer, which is something I'm always open to. Having AI to bounce bad ideas off of so that I can get to the good ones. That's a fantastic way of getting to your goal really quickly.
So more like a dialogue partner, using it as a tool to try and see, can you talk out your thoughts to the AI? Do you find that that helps you clarify what you're thinking?
Yes, yes, I do. But regardless of what I'm thinking and what the AI is sort of suggesting, um, there's no way of predicting actually where the fun part is. So going back to your question about the fun, like thinking back to the last event that we were at, Protospiel North,
Hmm.
we sat down and we played my side scroller for the first time. And I think I told you after the test, like it worked exactly as I had envisioned. It was
Hmm.
flawless and perfect, but it was boring and horrible and did not meet the feeling that I was trying to get. So even the best laid plans
Hmm.
doesn't you have to get it on the table. Like there's no replacing that, like that, unless you're clairvoyant, and I don't know, I'm not good at obviously predicting the feeling. I'm not good enough yet to predict the feeling that a game is going to convey, or that you're going to feel. But you always need both. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you are good at predicting it, you're gonna find out so much more from putting it in front of people about the user interface, which leads to your user experience, which leads to my next questions. See how that's how you segue. Uh, do you actually have a formal background in UX UI type stuff? Is that what you do for a living, Jason?
UX, yes.
Yeah,
UI, less so. So UX and UI are they share the U, they share the user,
yeah,
but that's it.
yeah.
So UX, yes. I've got a long career as a UX consultant for digital agencies. I've worked on many websites, including more recently the relaunch of Staples.ca in 2019. I worked on
Oh, wow.
Walmart. I've worked on US Foods. I've worked on TGI Fridays. I've worked on Vitamin Shop. I've worked on many national and international brand digital experiences. And these days, I'm more focused on game design, but I do still consult in the UX field.
Yeah, okay. And how does that influence how you design games? And then we'll get to how you like pitch games to publishers and pro and even like playtesting games. How does that UX experience help you with all of that?
So in every possible way. There's no short answer to that question. Honestly, in every possible way.
We've got
The
44 minutes, so
I could use it all in this one question, but I'll try not to. I'll say that um, just from a mentality perspective,
Mhm.
just simply from a mentality perspective, you're designing a website or a kiosk experience or a mobile app or whatever it might be. Like you are getting it in front of users. Those users have goals. Those users have motivations. Those users have pain points. And your goal as a user designer is user experience designer is meant to alleviate those pain points and to meet those goals and to meet their motivations and like just having that mentality of being moldable and knowing that I'm not designing something that it's going to be right because I know better, because I know this space. Like you have to get in front of users and you have to analyze the behavior. You have to interview them. Like everything in the board game design space is benefits from my user experience background. So whether we're talking about um, something as simple as component design, visual design, card design, simplification. Like the very first versions of Great Uncle Mort is Dead's cards were so complex, and I suffered from a very common early game designer's affliction, which is I'm using the game to show people how smart I am and not actually find the fun in playing the game. And so after many iterations, my cards have split in three and simplified, and there's a lot of design principles that helps with component design, but also pitching. So thinking about sell sheet. I think Hafiz, very early on, you told me about the F pattern on the sell sheet that people read from left to right and then down the page and then halfway across. Like that's a very common design aesthetic that you should design for. Even your website, your everything actually that goes in front of a publisher, because a publisher, getting in the mindset of a publisher, what do they care about? They care about, will this fit into my catalog? How much is it going to cost to make? So what's the production cost? How am I going to sell this? Do I already sell to this audience, and is it going to be easy for me to do that? And so you're using your user experience chops to target the right publishers, to make sure that the assets that you're presenting to them will speak to them, will resonate, and then your game components, and then also prototyping and game design in general. Like everything I'm doing at the Snakes and Lattes nights, like that's user research. That's heavy qualitative user research. And then of course there's quantitative research on the other side of it, which is where I've built a simulation tool that
Mhm.
before we played Great Uncle Mort is Dead the first time, I had already run it through 40,000 playtests, and using a simulator that I had built that gave me numbers to look at. So quantitative research as well. So every aspect of game design benefits from my user experience background.
Very cool, very cool. Um,
I had the chance to see the simulator that you created, and I thought it was really interesting the way that you structured it because you didn't just say, "This is my game, throw it in there, have it run a bunch of tests." You created different kinds of players. You had the player that just wants to bully their way to a win. You had the player that's more strategic. You had the player that is a little more balanced, and then you said, now here is my game. You had them play against one another, you had them play against versions of themselves. Um, can you talk us through the thinking behind the simulation, how you use it, and then why do you think it works?
Yeah. So broadly speaking, there are three types of things that I test for when it comes to simulation. And I will put a big asterisk. I am not testing for fun. I am not finding fun. This has nothing to do with fun or theme. It only has to do with balance and fairness. So the three things that I focus on generally are is there a seat bias? And so to find a seat bias, you need bots that all behave the same way. If all the bots are behaving the same way and they all play the same, does first player always win, for example? So that's the first and very easy thing that I use it for. The second one is strategy bias. So does, on the flip side, does the random bot that's just doing random actions, do they beat any other bots, like in any sort of statistical significance? If the answer is yes,
That's not
you should
good.
you should throw out your game. And likewise, if a strategy bot is beating, I also have like a forgetful bot that plays like the strategy bot, but 15% of the time they forget what's good and they do a random move. So like maybe the strategy bot should like win more often. I have a greedy bot that just chases resources. So depending on, it's not just about, the strategy bot always wins or the greedy bot always wins. It's giving you data that you can then say, well, actually, I want the strategy bot to win all the time, or I want the greedy bot to win all the time, but I definitely don't want the random bot to win all the time. The third thing I test for is component bias. So in a game like Terraforming Mars or Wingspan or Cardia, is there a card or card combos that break the game? 80% of the time, when this card is taken by a bot, that bot wins, for example. So there's kind of three layers to the balancing.
Hmm. And so when you get a report back, do you have to parse through all that data, or does it run a report specific that shouts out or points out, hey, this card combo was in the 40,000 games that were played, this combo was used by the winning player, 9 times out of 10 or something like that?
So this will be contentious as well, because the buzzword's going to come up again.
Yeah.
My platform is a programmatic platform that simulates the gameplay, and the bots are programmatic, the behavior is programmatic, the rules implementation is programmatic. However, there are AI touch points throughout the system, and so that would be one of them. So looking at the 10,000 games that I just ran in the last day, I would have an AI assistant that would take all the game logs, the overall results, the numbers, and then do an analysis, and then make recommendations, or at least identify areas to explore. That's sort of the main focus: identify areas to explore, identify cautions, not necessarily to make recommendations, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's, like, if we're going to get into the AI argument right now, just because we are here and there's three of us. So, like, I think what is commonly, like, if people don't really understand AI and they think like, oh, it's just all LLMs and it's all generative and it's all that kind of stuff, there are other forms of AI. And like, there's, in a use case of AI for information and inspiration as opposed to generation, that's where, as an educator and a person who works in creative fields, I think that's where it's hopefully going to go that way, as opposed to doing all the fun work or doing all the work for you and you get something out that you don't even know how you got it. Right. So
Right.
it's the black boxness of a lot of it that I think is worrisome. And then also, obviously, just like the output is, it's not that great. It's kind of mid on the creative front. But if it's going to take a data report and skim it and then shoot back the information that you yourself could have found in like 3 or 4 times that the amount of time it took to do it, or like infinitesimal, really, probably. So it probably does it really, really fast. And then you can make some decisions based on that, or you could go back and requery, or even go look at it yourself. If you can go look at that data and then say, wait a minute, it missed some things. I think that's not a bad use of AI, right? That seems to me to be a fair use of a tool to help you do something that you could do, but it just takes you a lot of time, right? I want AI to like do my dishes, not
Yeah,
paint a
I
picture
think
for
that's
me.
the big thing too. Like data analysis, you're not it's not being fed on people's art that they've
Yeah.
created. It's not it's the boring part, not the creative part of the design aspect of it. It's not like, hey, you had to come up with your theme and then your rules and then everything else. It's the I've done the heavy lifting on the creative side. I need refinement to polish because, as you mentioned, this is used for balancing. I'm actually interested to know if it gives you aha moments when you're taking a look at the analysis, because you mentioned one of the things you're trying to get rid of early on or find out early on is, is there a first player bias or second player bias? Is there a combo that is a dominant strategy? A lot of times games are kind of like films or plays where there's different acts, like you have your beginning, middle, and end. Have you had any aha moments when you were looking at the data where it's like, oh, this tells me actually a lot about the mid game, or this tells me a lot about the end game, or any relation between them?
So let me answer your question first, and then I'm going to take a contentious position on AI in general, and we'll
Mm,
go back to what we talked about before that. So,
yep.
firstly, yes, definitely aha moments. Like the game that I'm currently working on is a light card game that's kind of Uno adjacent, tentatively called Berry Jam, where you collect berries and then you add them to your jar to make jam. It identified a very early seat bias. And so I was like, okay, if there's a seat bias, then I can just change the setup to give second player an advantage, third player an even greater advantage, like many board games do, and that seemed to fix it. So that in my simulations again, I'm early days on that one. I haven't done a ton of playtesting. So yes, definitely aha moments for that. Also for Great Uncle Mort, I definitely, because it's a semi-cooperative game, I saw a lot of um, dominance by the game. So the game player, the NPC is the attorneys. You're fighting in Great Uncle Mort is Dead. We're at our wealthy uncle's will reading, and we're fighting each other. But while we're fighting each other, the attorneys, aka the game, is skimming stuff off the top. And if they skim too much, then the estate becomes insolvent and nobody gets anything. So I was using the balancing to determine percentage of times based on player count that the game was winning, and then I would go back and kind of figure out ways to balance that out. So yes, absolutely, it is helpful for those aha moments. Now, on the previous topic about, I know there's, especially in the board game space, there's a lot of protection of artists, and I get that. I am not an artist, as I said on the top. I am not a UI. Well, I can do UI design, like I can design my cards and my website, but I'm not an artist. I cannot draw, I cannot illustrate. And I can recognize that there are components in many of my games that require art, and that if that job was handled by AI, then that artist would be out of work. That being said, you could say the same thing about what you're calling the boring stuff. A data scientist who has a profession looking at data and making insights out of it could do this job that my simulator is using AI specifically for. It's looking at the stats and analyzing where things are broken, and it is replacing that person. Likewise, I'm able to push my platform forward so quickly because I use AI in my development cycles. Now, I have a computer science degree, but I've never, I mean, for the last 15 years, 20 years, I haven't been a programmer. I've been a UX consultant. And definitely, if AI did not exist, I would need a programmer to build this. And so I'm definitively taking a job away from them as well. So to say that AI is just taking away the boring stuff or taking away jobs from other people, not artists, like I don't think any of it is really cool, is really like yay AI. At the end of the day, AI uses a lot of cycles, and it's bad for the environment, and everything you do with it is something that someone else could do and could do better. So even if I could do this analysis and it would take me say an hour to look at the stats and come up with results, I don't know if those results would be just as good, and I'm not sure if the AI results are just as good as a data scientist doing those things. That being said, AI is really good at allowing for rapid prototyping and rapid building and all of this rapid, everything related to rapid. And if the cost of that is that, an illustrator is out of work, which in some of my prototypes, I've used AI art, but I'm pitching all of those games to publishers, and I would push them to get an artist to redo my art. But I've done all the graphic design myself. Now, am I an amazing graphic designer? No. They should probably hire a graphic designer to do that work. Now, hopefully, the AI platform that I'm building will, you know, inform them that the game is fair and they don't need to hire that data scientist. And let's be frank, most publishers are not probably hiring a
Yeah, they
data
don't
scientist.
have a data scientist on staff. Um,
No.
Exactly.
yeah, and you bring up a
So
good point. This conversation around AI, because you see this being posted in a lot of forums,
yes,
and it goes in like complete opposite terms, and
yes,
it's an area that has nuance. There, it's not just black and white; it's grays.
no,
No game designer should be paying for art for your prototypes. You will be wasting your money. Not that artists shouldn't be paid, but that's not the
yeah,
stage for it. And as you mentioned, it sounds like you're using it to give more of a feel of the game. So when you're pitching to publishers, they can get a sense of this is the image that I have
yeah,
in mind.
yep.
Um, yeah,
Also for playtesting, helping a playtester, just like with digital usability tests, having someone. So when I was building when I build a website and I have a wireframe, so wireframe's like a blueprint for a website. It's literally boxes and text and lines and that's about it. And when you don't have colors and proper spacing and images, the usability test is more about labels. Does this label make sense? Content hierarchy. Is this box the right first box on the page? Later, when you add more higher fidelity graphics, colors, spacing, real life content, then you're testing more. Can you reach your goal? Is this organic? Like you're testing something different. So because I rapid prototype, I want to speed through what I consider to be the boring stuff, which is the game balanced and does it work? I don't want to play thousands of games and take 4 years to build one game. I'd rather focus on like finding the fun, finding the fun and really working that theme and building games. I really enjoy building and designing games. So I try to use real looking art designed by AI. Like my illustrations are designed by AI, fully knowing that they will be replaced by publishers. And my cards and components are all designed. Like I design them. I use Figma. I'm a graphic designer, or I have some level of graphic design capabilities. But most of my components have some level of AI generated illustration because I'm not an artist. And I do that because I want my playtesters to feel I want feedback on the right part of the game. I want feedback on the fun part. I don't want them focused on, oh, this looks amateur or this looks um, it looks incomplete. Particularly because I focus a lot on family and casual games. So I do a lot of playtesting with younger players. And the second that you get a younger player playing like, you know, a cardboard cutout or a hand drawn whatever or like a stick figure, they're like, why does this look so bad? And they're super focused on that and not focused on how fun the game is. And yes, that's what every kid sounds like to me, by the way.
we're both educators. You're not wrong.
They do sound like that. So in terms of I mean so the counter to that is that, like you said, no data scientist is actually losing a job because there are no data scientists who work in this field. I can
Depends on the
pretty much
publisher.
I can pretty much guarantee that at the hobby level until you get up to like maybe Asmodee, and those guys aren't doing data science on the game. They're doing data science on the sales, right? That's what they're looking at, is like the money end of things.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily a one-to-one argument, but yeah, I think there is room in this discussion for the nuances, like Hafiz is saying, of what is a good use of AI, what is a not so good use of AI. um and I will say that, yeah, for children, for families, maybe art is more necessary.
Mhm.
The counter to that would be that in a game about Vikings who are doing something Viking like, um I, as an adult, can imagine that in my head without any art whatsoever. I just actually need
Yes.
a very clean graphic design cardboard, whatever, and you can apply the theme later. And I can tell you if it's thematic or not without seeing the art because of the actions that I'm doing in the game. Does it feel like I would feel if I was a, much taller, much blonder, much stronger Viking seafarer? So yeah, I mean, there is maybe some use cases for the art side of it. I wouldn't even call it art or illustration. It's just an image at this point.
Mhm.
But yeah, so but I do like the idea of the rapid testing because like you said, this is not the part of the game where you're finding the fun and you're not getting the human interaction. You're getting a lot of the slog work out of the way, the grunt work out of the way to allow you to present a product to your human testers that values their time, right, and values their input.
Yep.
And you're getting away from the is there a seat bias, is there a component bias, is there a strategy bias, because you've designed all that out because you've run 40,000 simulated versions of the game. And when you have a data set that is that big, um, you're actually looking at hopefully reasonable um, insights, because the data set being that big, if it comes up many, 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 many times, it is what we would call statistically significant, and your p values are probably all good. There is. I'm sure if you gave your data to an actual data scientist, they could pull it apart and do some fun stuff with it, but it,
I
it,
mean,
it may not be worth it at that. It may not be worth it. It may just be worth it just to
yeah.
to get a little bit less insight and preciseness to do the job that you're doing, right? That's the other thing. It's like, does what does statistical significance actually imply, and what does it actually mean, and what does evidence actually mean? We're getting way out into the left field here, guys. But even in healthcare, which is my field of study, right? We Evidence based practice is not just what we read in journals, it's also what we hear from patients and what we see in the treatment rooms and all that kind of stuff. That is also evidence. It's anecdotal evidence, but you mentioned qualitative versus quantitative, and there's some things that we can't actually measure quantitatively even in the year 2026. There's just no way of actually doing that well, even with the best 7-point Likert scales and whatever, and self-report and all these things. We're still not necessarily getting the information that we get when we just ask people to tell us their story,
Yeah, which is
about yeah,
which is
which
the
is
fun
finding the
part.
fun.
Like,
Yeah, and that's
yeah,
finding
you
the fun
can't.
in a game. You're watching it, you're
Mhm.
looking at it, right? It's real
Yeah,
time.
seeing those moments that capture people, and it sounds like what you're trying to do, especially with rapid prototyping, is keeping up momentum.
That too,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I will say one last point on data versus insights. Like, let's call a spade a spade. A data scientist looking at a data set can kind of tell any story that the corporation wants. So
Also true.
even like looking at analytics, like you can tell a story with analytics in many ways. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, and you're right. You're not really taking a job away from a data analyst by doing this work. So, and needless to say, I'm probably going to continue developing it anyways, even though I'm taking a job away from developer because it's really fun and I find it quite critical to what I'm to everything that I'm doing. It's very relevant. And for the record, I started by just using AI to build very targeted and curated, and that's what Hafiz saw, a targeted and curated simulation tool for my games.
Hmm.
Um, but what I'm actually trying to do now, it's super interesting, is a universal interpreter of rules. So you feed it, ideally, the goal would be you feed it any set of rules, and then it will interpret those rules, standardize those rules into micro actions and movements, and then create, with the click of a button, the simulator, assign the right bots to it. And then once that entity is created, with feedback. So if there's like ambiguity in your rules or if there's things that are missing, it'll like ask you questions. You can then hit one button and it'll run a battery of tests across all player counts and all the different balance metrics that we talked about already. And then it'll take you through a step-by-step diagnostic of like, validating that the things that it found are correct, and then identifying areas where you should consider exploring and fixing things. And then ultimately, once the game is balanced, I have visions of this ultimately outputting things like scripts to make a tabletop simulator LUA functionality, to make a BGA implementation, to help you with publishing. So help you with rewriting your rules for publisher facing based on audience age, to help you with what should go on your sell sheet, what should go in your video script. Like it's meant to be something that can really streamline and support the publishing process, or at least I was originally calling it kind of like the publisher's toolkit, but now I'm sort of leaning into this idea of like it's on game iteration. It's helping you iterate your game, but that's sort of the vision for the platform.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's
been super fun.
yeah, and it does kind of like there is, because I don't think I ever don't. I pretty much 99.99999% of my career has been in co-designing with people,
Mm.
right? And I think that struck me as an interesting thing that you said, like, without a co-designer, how do you learn to articulate your ideas? And you're bouncing it off of an agent, a bot. But for me, I've always had my best friend, who I work with all the time, to do this with, and it has 100% made me a way better designer, because I have to be very clear about how I speak, because otherwise, he lives 3 hours time zone difference. He's in British Columbia, so
Oh wow.
we work extemporally. I'll write him a message on a forum, and he'll reply 3 hours later, and then I wake up and I read his reply to me. That's how it worked, like 20 years ago. Nowadays, it's a little better. We have a Discord, but yeah, the whole function of that was to promote us talking to each other about the games. And it is a privilege. It is something
It
that not
is.
everybody has. And I think it does tell you just how important it is to have people, or a bot, to bounce those ideas off of, to try to tell the story that the game is telling, or to talk about your game with, because it's through that process that you get better and better at explaining it, or cutting out the stuff that I can't explain that to a 5-year old. How am I going to explain it in writing? I guess that maybe I should cut that. That's actually that's a real good trick, guys. If you can't explain it, you probably should cut it out of your game, because it's just too difficult. Like, if you
I mean,
need
that
all the
is, yeah.
tools, right? If you need, oh, I can do it, but I need 3 pages of a rule book with graphics and illustrations and annotations, then maybe it's not right. Depending on the type of game, right? If it's a real, like, grognard level TI4 type game, then maybe. But if it's supposed to be sold at Target to, a general audience, yeah, that might be too much, right? And Hafiz, you have your brother, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
we all talk to our
we sound
spouses about games, right? We sound
we
exactly a
soundboard, yeah.
soundboard.
And Jason, you mentioned your spouse sometimes just wants a break from it, but you mentioned that you go to Snakes and Lattes and you'll share ideas before you start diving into the design part of it with other designers. Do you find that helpful to say, "Hey, I have this idea for a game. This is what I'm thinking," and hearing people's feedback before you jump into the actual, let me put paper to pencil to see if it makes sense? Or would you prefer, let me get the idea down, I have this inspiration, get it down, then show it to people?
I've done it all. I've started with just the idea. Oh, I have this idea for a game. I'm not really sure. Like for the side scrolling, the Double
Hmm.
Dragon sim, that started from an idea. I like brought it to the table before I had anything, and I had a discussion. And then the other designers also had similar ideas, not similar ideas, but other early stage ideas that we discussed there as well. So I've done that. I've come to the table with like a mechanic to say like, hey, can we just try this like mechanic? Like, does it work? And then I've come with like a fully realized game with like, finished designs. And I'm just like, hey, can you teach me the game? Let's do a blind play test. I've done all of them. I'm also a little ambidextrous when it comes to design. Like so Mort was designed from a mechanic first. It started
Hmm.
from the Matt Leacock Pandemic, back of the card, front of the card. The back of the deck influences the effectiveness of the front of the deck sort of mechanic. And that was sort of what I designed the entirety of Mort around to start. But I've also started from the theme, so I've kind of done it both ways. I know a lot of designers that kind of pick one way and they design one way. I'm more fluid. I'm more open.
Yeah. Speaking about fluid and open, we've mentioned several games that you've created so far. We've mentioned Mort. We've mentioned the side scroller game that you said right now. There's Within Reach, which was the octopus game that we had the chance to play.
Yep.
There was the berry one that you were talking about, and there's several more on your website. Several more we've played. We played one that was almost like a party word
Oh
game.
yeah, no
So
time to
Yeah.
argue.
that, yeah, yeah. And
Oh, that one's not
so
even
I
on
know
my
that
website.
I was flipping through. I'm like, where was that game that we played? I need the name for it.
It's not there. Yeah.
But it, I know you mentioned at the beginning, at the top of the show, that you like to design games. So you kind of have an audience in mind. You're looking more mass market, more quick games. But even within that, it seems like you've got quite a diverse range of games. You have a video game side scroller. You have a party game. You have a um, and the party game itself was kind of like a limited game. You're including a deck of cards plus the limited number of cards for what
Yeah.
you have.
Highly constrained game. That was a deckhand game, or intended for
Yeah,
the deckhand
Mm,
contest.
yeah.
and so I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about that because you've already narrowed down the kinds of games you like to play, but it sounds like you're creating quite a diversity of games, whether the party games, limited games, games that have just like quick decisions, interactions, partly co-op games. And so, can you tell us a little bit about how you go about that, and how does rapid prototyping play a role in that as well too?
So it goes back to being fluid. A game doesn't always start and end where it was. Like Mort started as a real time game that was kind of like I'm the boss inspired, like classic Sid Saxon.
Hmm.
But more recently, I've gotten away from it being real time, and so I'm changing it. It wasn't as Take That originally. It had, I think, in our first original gameplay, it had a single token that was played across the table, and now the game is 100% tokens, and it's barely an auction game at all. It's more just smacking other people around the table with your tokens. Some of it is based on publisher demand. So I was at Canada Plays and met a publisher who had this amazing document that told me the types of games they were looking for. And number two was a card game, which 99 Balloons, my first one of my first card games, almost a year and a half ago, was good for. And family gateway games, which Within Reach is getting there. It's still evolving. I changed it as recently as yesterday. But their number one was party game, and I was like, okay, great. I'm going to design a party game for you. And to be honest, a lot of this stuff just sort of comes up like on dog walks when I'm just walking the dogs and not, the hamster wheel is turning and it's
Mhm.
late at night and there's nothing going on. And I'm like, how can I make a party game? And originally, actually, this party game, which is the one on my website, is called 45 Seconds. It's very much like the one that we played, the No Time to Argue. Um, but actually, that one started out of the deckhand contest. So a friend of mine, Andy, was designing a Hanabi style or Hanabi style card game that's co-op for deckhand. And I was like, well, maybe I should design a deckhand game. What could I design? And I don't know where the idea sort of came from, but I kind of had it in my head that I wanted to design code names. And I was like, how do I design an 18 card code names? And the idea of constraint is really interesting in design. So knowing that I only have 18 cards to work with, they have to be poker sized, they can be double sided, but no other components. How do I build code names? And I like had all these ideas spinning in my head about like the number grid, and it got me down this rabbit hole that ended up just ultimately I abandoned. But then I had this unlock about No Time to Argue, where you could have a single, poker sized card that had like different categories on the four sides with like cards around it with numbers. So I could be like, oh, it's six of this category and 4 of this category and whatever, and it just sort of worked. And then once that game got to a place where I felt good enough to submit it, I was like, I wonder if this could also serve that party game for that I was trying to design for. I'm like, wait a sec, I think I could make a whole board game out of this. And then I play tested it at Snakes and Lattes with one of the deckhand guys who happened to be there, Steven. And
Hmm.
he was like, this is a mass market game. This is amazing. You should be pitching this like tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to take a step back and not like pitch it right away. I do a few more play tests, and I've actually evolved the card design based on what's on my website. It doesn't look like that anymore, and clarified some things to kind of simplify it. And so it has evolved and changed. But it's, I have a pitch video, I have the sell sheet for it. So a lot of it just comes from like slices of things. I'm walking the dogs, I get an idea, I watch a TV show or something, and then I'm like, I wonder if that could be a game. Like I was thinking yesterday about Six Nimmt and like some sort of like Six Nimmt meets Rummy Cube idea. I was kind of toying with the idea of like what would the marriage between those two games look like. So I have like a thread with my design partner, which by the way, I'm very open to co-designing. If anyone's looking for a co-designer, very open. I'm very curious, co-design curious. Um, so yes, I've got a ton of ideas. So I don't know. It just sort of comes, and I'll play a game and I'll be like, I love this. Like there's a classic game called Traders of Genoa. I don't know if you
Hmm.
know it. It's an old Euro. It's like an hour and a half long. I think now it's just called Genoa. They've rebranded it, and it's always I've always loved that every turn you're bartering your actions. You get 5 actions and you must sell 4 of them to other players. So you're like every game, every round starts with every turn. In fact, starts with bartering your turns,
Hmm.
bartering your actions away. And I'm like, I have it in the back of my mind. Like I'm going to design a game that like has something like this, where you've got X number of actions, but you can only use one, and you're forced to trade away the rest. I absolutely love that mechanic. Just like the pandemic mechanic, I love this idea of you've got the deck and the back of the card influences which side of the front of the draw card or the revealed card triggers. So sometimes it's just like I play a game and I really like a mechanic. Sometimes it's like one of my favorite games. And I'm like, oh, I just want to like, I wish I designed this. What's the next best thing? Well, let me design something that's kind of like it. And quite frankly, and this is going to sound bad, but Berry Jam started because I really like Flip Seven, and I've met Eric a number of times, and he's a really nice guy, the designer. And I was like, but I hate the math, and the math in Flip Seven is it's a lot, and there's calculator tools and whatever, so fine. But how do I design like a better Flip Seven? And I ended up designing a better Flip Seven. I think it has no math in it. You win a round, and then you get 1 point, and it's first to 3. So you don't have to like get all the way to 200. You don't have to do any math. Can you count to 3? Like most people can. Um, but when I took it to the playtest night, I got a lot of feedback around if you abstractly describe what this game is. There's 4 things that it is. It has a game composition: 1 1, 2 2s, 3 3s, 4 4s, etc. etc. When you get a pair, something bad happens. There are special cards. I'm like, if I use that description, I'm describing both Flip Seven and my game, and that's a massive problem. So if I
Mhm.
so either I have 2 options. One, I reach back out to Eric and I say, hey Eric, I might have an idea for like Flip Seven Junior that we should co-design and work together on, which I might do. I don't know. We'll see. Or two, I should change a bunch of things, change 2 out of the 3 things or 1 out of the 3 things to make it a different game.
Hmm.
Where Berry Jam came from. So often I'm just like trying to recreate or fix something in a game that I love. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
very, very common. Like the root of a lot of villain origin stories as game designers is like,
whoa,
no, no, just not you, villain, but like everybody. Like you have a superhero, superhero origin story, is born of frustration, right?
yeah,
When it's like, I like this game, but this part of it is really, you know, doing me in, or I don't like this part. I really wish we didn't have to,
math,
whatever it is.
no math.
Yeah, no math in this case, right?
Yeah,
And the the very uh the very smart Rob Davio, said that if people asked him, how do I become a game designer? He'd say, fix a game you don't like. And then he would say, after
Wow.
you do that, fix another game you don't like.
Hmm.
And then you take those two games and you stick them together and try to make a game out of both of them. And then you're going to end up with something that is very divergent from the two original source pieces, right? And that's kind of where you're at right now. It's like, hey, what do I do with this? Well, I could change some stuff. Well, what would you change, right? And how would that affect everything? But still have and still stay tight to your vision of no math at the end,
No math. Yes.
right? And that's, I think, a lot of what you've said today is dealing with that. It's, I'm the designer, I have the vision, what the players' feedback tell me, what even the AI agents tell me, whatever. It's still my vision, and I'm still sticking to that vision. And I'm using all this information from users' experiences, from statistic analysis, from people saying that this is too similar to another game, to then guide what I'm going to do. I'm going to filter all that feedback to make the changes as that I see are necessary. But I'm making the changes, and I'm making the decision about what's being changed here. So yeah, I mean that's generally a good idea. That this is a good way to do it. And I mean, I hope that you and Eric take that idea and make it into Flip 7 Junior, because I bet that would sell like hotcakes. Because Flip 7 has, right? So, and there's like all sorts of versions of it already. So why not Flip 7
Why not?
Junior? And Buried Jam could still exist,
Yeah.
Potentially, if there's enough differentiators between like the key selling points, right? Or the
Now it's
identifying
totally
features.
different.
Right,
Yeah.
there you
Now
go.
it's very different. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Like I would say, as a designer, like, or I don't know if this is just me, like as my persona, but I have that like typical sort of like alpha male mentality where I'm like super super firm. When I know something, I'm like confident. I know it. It is definitively the truth. Um, until I'm proven wrong. And I'm very, very quickly able to be proven wrong and like veer into a totally different, like, Hafiz, you know this about me. I'll come like every day with a totally different like rule set. Like literally the side scroller. I gutted the system, and on day two it was a different game.
You did that with Mort. I think we played it
Yeah.
on a Friday at a
Yeah.
Protospiel, and then on Saturday, you had a version that was probably 70% different from the version we played
Exactly.
the day before. And I
And
think
I was
that's a
so
really good.
firm.
Yeah, I think that's
It
a really
was
good skill too. You mentioned you're not married to your ideas. You're okay
No.
killing your darlings. So this is actually a great transition to the final thing, because we are reaching the end of the hour.
Yeah.
If you had any final advice to designers that were thinking about how can they move more quickly with their games, how could they rapidly prototype? What kind of advice would you give them?
So I would give them. I've been working on this system that I have yet to sort of publish anywhere, but it's like the 5 Fs, and actually, I guess it's kind of the 6 Fs, I suppose. So you need to, as the board game designer, you need to be firm about what you're trying to build. So you'll get all sorts of feedback, and you need to be firm about what you're going for, where your destination is, but also flexible. So when you get that feedback, and that's the second F, and you're just digesting that feedback, be open to actually changing your game, knowing that your North Star, where you're going, is still valid,
Mhm.
and be firm in that adjusted idea. And presumably, when you hear your feedback, the other thing about, actually, I would just say the other thing about your playtesting is that there's 3 ways to rapidly prototype around the letter F. And these are kind of areas of focus, if you will. Generally speaking, when you're playtesting, you should focus on finding the fun, focus on the flavor. So what's the theme that you're going after, whether it's pirates or whatever, strawberry, berry farm, berry jam, whatever it is, find that flavor that you're going for, and find the feeling that you're after. So once you've identified those 3 things, what's the theme of your game, the flavor, what's the fun part of your game, and what's the feeling that you're trying to convey? If anything in your game does not ladder up to those 3 critical things, it should be gone. It should go away. And the fourth thing is eventually realizing that maybe your game's not going to work, or maybe you hear some negative feedback. Don't be afraid to lean into that frustration and say the F word here or there. The sixth
That's
F.
the sixth one. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, everybody. It is 10 o'clock. Jason, it's been so good having you on. Thank you for the discussion and the talk about rapid prototyping and user experience and your platform that someday may be something people use all around the world to help them with getting past that first part of, is this game biased in any single way, right? That's really what it is about. It's eliminating the biases. And I think that's what a lot of people need to do before they actually, put it in front of complete strangers.
Yes.
So yeah, that I could see as a very interesting use of stuff. All right, everybody, if you want to chat with me some more, you can reach me on Blue Sky at Senfeng Lim. Hafiz, where are you at, bro?
People can get in touch with me at on Instagram at Printer Ink Games.
And we're at Meeple Syrup on all the things. You can find Jason at his website, which is www.jkgames.ca, because he's Canadian. There you go. If you want to help keep the lights on, please go to patreon.com/Meeple Syrup. Nobody does, but you could go if you'd like. Other than that, what are we doing in the upcoming weeks, Hafiz?
Yeah, next week's going to be fun. We have Dr. Samuel Pizzello. I think I butchered his name. He's going to be talking about how games shaped modern science and technology.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, I had the chance to go see a lecture of his, and it was fascinating. So I harangued him, and now he's going to be on the show. And then after that, the week after, we have Grant from Grant Game Rex, and
Hey.
we're going to talk about comedy in games and how to bring more people into the hobby.
Yeah, and he'll just be back fresh from San Diego Comic Con
Yep.
and Gen Con, both.
Yeah,
So
and he also
he can give us
launched
the
a new
lowdowns.
YouTube show where he plays
Oh, that's
games with
fun.
comedian friends, and
Oh,
they just have a good.
hilarious.
It's so funny. It's great. So we'll bug him about that too.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Jason, for coming on the show. We'll see everybody here next week, same time, same place. See you later.
Thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Ba-donk.